Am I the a-hole for giving crappy Christmas gifts and ruining my marriage? Throwaway account for anonymity. I, 31F, married my soon-to-be ex-husband, 33M, in 2018. My in-laws never liked me, and they made it clear. My soon-to-be ex insisted that they were just putting up a tough exterior and that they would grow to love me. To show how awful they were, one time I joined them for dinner and brought a cake I had made, because I was always raised to be a gracious guest. When I stepped into the kitchen and offered the cake to his mother as a thank you for inviting me, she took the plate over to the garbage bin, dumped it in, and handed the plate back to me. When I told my husband what she did, he confronted her. All of a sudden, the crocodile tears started, and she claimed that she grabbed the plate but did not get a good grip, that I let go too quickly, and that it fell to the floor. So, of course, it had to be thrown away. My sister-in-law confirmed that was what happened. My soon-to-be ex owned his own business, and they called me a gold digger behind his back. Of course, they insisted on a prenuptial agreement, which I did not care about because I never thought my marriage would end. I thought it would appease them and maybe allow them to finally treat me kindly. Nope. His business failed once COVID hit. We went through his savings and my own trying to keep it afloat. I refused to go into debt to keep it going, so he closed it down. In 2022, he was suffering from really bad depression because he lost his business and could not find new work. He suggested we move to his hometown, closer to his family, so he would have a larger support network. Against my best judgment, we did. He wanted to work only part-time while he tried to restart his business, so I became the main breadwinner. And as with most wives, I became the person in charge of buying gifts. Stupid old me thought buying them thoughtful, expensive gifts would finally make them see that I wanted to be accepted by them. The gifts to us were always a couple's gift, but clearly for my soon-to-be ex only. Every holiday was spent with them. Monthly dinners with the whole family. After a year, I realized that if I ever tried to talk or join a conversation, everyone would go quiet. So I just stopped talking when I visited. In early December, they finalized plans for Christmas. A few days later, my soon-to-be ex said his family decided they did not want me to join them for Christmas Eve dinner and Christmas lunch because I ruined the family vibe. I replied, "Fine, we will do our own thing instead." My soon-to-be ex sheepishly looked away and said he was still going to go. I was livid and so disappointed in him. That was the moment I knew my marriage was over. So I returned the presents I had bought for his family. In their place, I got one pair of novelty business socks for my father-in-law, a supermarket brand bottle of shampoo for my mother-in-law, and the nastiest perfume I could find at the dollar store for my sister-in-law. The most expensive gift was a large rawhide bone for my brother-in-law and his wife's chihuahua, too big for it to get its jaw around, rendering it useless. I saved about $600 to put toward a deposit for a new apartment. My husband came home from Christmas lunch telling me I humiliated and embarrassed him in front of his family. I asked him why he would think I would buy nice gifts for people who clearly do not like me and do not want me around. I was served divorce papers last week. Remember how he was supposed to be a millionaire by now, which is why we had that prenuptial agreement. My soon-to-be ex is not eligible for any of my savings, since we were required to keep separate accounts, or alimony. He does not have money for rent or auto insurance. Not my problem anymore. Some of my friends and family are on my side and proud that I went out in a blaze of glory. Others are telling me I was being way too petty, which is not really like me. So, am I the a-hole? Update 1. Many thanks to everyone for their support in my last post. I thought I would send a small update. First, for those who asked how the deposit on my new apartment was only the $600 I saved on gifts, it certainly was not. I had to dip into savings, but that $600 helped. My soon-to-be ex did not bother reaching out to me after I left until he was served the divorce papers and my lawyer made it clear we were exercising the prenuptial agreement. Then it was loving voicemails and texts, which I never answered, from him and his family for a few days trying to convince me to come back. Eventually, those turned into threatening and cruel voicemails and texts when it became clear I was not budging. My lawyer suggested I not block them so we would have evidence of harassment if needed. Basically, give them the rope to hang themselves with. Then last night, I got call after call from my soon-to-be ex. Stupidly, I picked up, thinking there was some kind of emergency. I barely got hello out when he said, "The rent is a week late." I told him that was strange because I paid my landlord 6 days ago. He paused and sighed dramatically, then replied, "No, the rent for here." I reminded him I do not live there and he should not expect rent from me. Cue his parents texting me that they are going to sue me to pay the remainder of the lease in full. I am not worried about having an eviction on my record, since the apartment is in his parents' names. When we first announced we were moving to his hometown, they rented an apartment for us right away so we could move in immediately. They have been renewing the lease each year. We had to pay his parents, and then they would write a check to the landlord, who has no idea who my soon-to-be ex and I are, let alone that we live there. Red flag, I know. I'm glad I had a few weeks to prepare for leaving, since they probably would have used the fact that it is their apartment to kick me out immediately. Divorce is probably going to be a bumpy ride with this man-child and his psycho parents. Any advice from anyone who has been through it is welcome. Update 2. Hi. If this is not the right place to post updates, please direct me to a subreddit that better fits. I'm sorry if I am annoying members who are not interested, but a few people requested an update. First post, my husband's family uninvited me from Christmas. My husband still left and made me celebrate Christmas alone. I organized terrible gifts as a final middle finger. First update, I moved out, and my underemployed soon-to-be ex and his family still expected me to pay rent on the apartment in my in-laws' names. To the people who commented that my soon-to-be former in-laws were probably charging my soon-to-be ex and me more than the amount on the lease, you called it. And we would not have found out if they were not so entitled and determined to hurt me. They got a cousin, who happens to be a lawyer, to send me a letter demanding I pay the entirety of the remainder of the lease or they would file suit and force me to pay it. Clearly a scare tactic. So my lawyer sent a formal request to their lawyer for a copy of the lease, which I had never seen, and a copy of their written agreement with us as sublessees, which does not exist. They sent the lease and insisted the sublease agreement was a verbal contract. Not only is subleasing explicitly prohibited, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law had been charging us an extra $200 each month. So we notified the landlord that I had been living there with my soon-to-be ex while the lessees were living in their own house throughout the duration of the lease. We sent copies of my driver's license, with the address listed, and over 2 years of bank and credit card statements showing the address. They were served with a 30-day eviction notice yesterday. I know about it because my mother-in-law left a voicemail accusing me of kicking my soon-to-be ex out of his home and saying she now drives with a baseball bat in her car and will be keeping an eye out for me. Laughable, obviously, my lawyer's expertise is family law, and this was outside her purview, so she referred me to a colleague who focuses on real estate law. We met today to devise a battle plan. I am now suing my mother-in-law and father-in-law for all the money I can prove I transferred for rent during the entire residency there, since the apartment was technically not a legal apartment for them to rent out because they were prohibited from subleasing. No clean hands to rent to us and then sue me. He is not sure how a judge will view it, and it is well beyond my state civil compensation limit, but he is confident it will scare them and leave them open to settling for just returning the additional $200 from each payment, which I think is fair, because I did live there with my soon-to-be ex, so I do not think it is right to get all the rent money back. I am an adult, and adults pay rent. And I do not want them to have the satisfaction of saying I am using the divorce as a windfall. On the soon-to-be ex front, there is no news. We will likely need to go to family court for a separation order since he will not agree to the financial details of the separation agreement my lawyer has drafted. My state requires a 1-year separation period before a divorce can be finalized, so this is going to be a long process. A few people ask why he did what he did and whether he offered any explanation or justification. We have not really talked since he was served. I do not know if he just fell out of love but was still financially convenient, or if the mask finally lifted, or if being so close to his family gave them more opportunities to manipulate him. I do not know, and I do not care. I do not need closure. I need them all gone. Looking back, making promises during couples counseling and slowly regressing back is enough closure. Knowing he allowed his family to treat me like garbage for so long is closure. That final betrayal at Christmas is closure. My focus is not on figuring it out. It is on making sure I am happy. Final update. Hi, everyone. I posted here a few months ago, and everyone was super supportive. Thank you. I thought I would send an update, and it is actually a positive one. Summary of previous events. The circus that is my life. My ex's family treated me terribly for years. In my naivete, I told myself to just try harder. They uninvited me to Christmas for always ruining the family vibe. My ex decided to celebrate with his family, because apparently his wife is not family, and left me to celebrate Christmas alone. I returned their expensive, thoughtful presents and replaced them with cheap, terrible ones as a final screw you, moved out, and filed for divorce. My ex could not afford the rent on the old apartment alone. The apartment was actually leased to his parents, and they demanded I pay the remainder of the rent or they would sue my lawyer, and I sued them. It turned out the sublease was illegal, and they charged us, really me, since my ex was a deadbeat, an extra $200 per month that they pocketed. We notified the real landlord, and my ex received an eviction notice. I had our first, and as it turns out only, mediation meeting with my former in-laws about the excess rent they were charging a few weeks ago. They tried to claim they charged us extra for their role as property managers of the apartment. They could not explain in any meaningful way what they did as property managers to justify a fee of $200 a month, other than chatting with their son about the apartment several times a month. In other words, they were charging us to talk to their own son. Then it came to the sublease being a verbal contract, since we never signed anything. My lawyer asked on what date I verbally agreed. I never did, actually, since my ex handled all of those conversations with his parents before our move. They said they could not remember, but since I moved in, I obviously agreed to the arrangement they made for their son. My lawyer told them it sounded like any verbal contract was with their son. Given the terms were oral and unclear, they would be too difficult and costly to enforce. He added that all of that was a moot point since they did not have the authority to sublease anyway, and their case would not get more than the 30 seconds it would take for a judge to dismiss it. He then told them we would pursue the lawsuit unless they settled on returning $6,200. He gave them time to discuss the deal with their lawyer. I was suing only for the excess, not the full rent, since I did live in the apartment. Within an hour, their lawyer called mine and agreed to a settlement of $5,400, since technically the small portion my ex paid toward rent should have a proportionate amount applied to some of that excess. We agreed to it. My divorce lawyer also sent them a cease and desist letter regarding the harassment, warning that if it continued, I would file for a restraining order. I have plenty of evidence to have one granted. A lot of people ask why I had not already done this, but I would rather not go nuclear unless I have to. My mother-in-law's job would very likely be affected if she had a restraining order against her, and she would probably escalate even further. Thankfully, this seems to have been enough of a wake-up call for her in particular. The texts, emails, and voicemails have stopped entirely. I also learned from mutual friends that my ex was already on dating apps a few weeks after I left. Apparently, nothing goes beyond a first date. I suppose women are not lining up to get involved with a 33-year-old unemployed entrepreneur who lives with and depends on his parents while chasing an elusive business he has not been able to start. All communication with him has been through my lawyer, except for 2 incidents. A few weeks ago, he called me at 3 a.m., completely drunk, and left a voicemail asking to fix things. He called the next day to apologize for that. This will likely be my final update. Now I just have to wait for the divorce to be finalized. There is a huge weight off my shoulders.